You have people in your life, maybe a lot of them. You have group chats that never go quiet, plans every weekend, coworkers who ask how you're doing, friends who would show up if you called, a family that loves you in the ways they know how, a life from the outside that looks full and still. Some nights you sit with this feeling you can't quite name, like something essential went untouched all day. Like you moved through every room and spoke to every person and said all the right things, and somehow were never actually reached. Like your presence was real, but your fullness stayed hidden, somewhere no one thought to look. You leave the gathering and get in the car, and there it is again. That quiet, that weight, the familiar ache of having been surrounded by people and somehow still deeply, privately, alone. That feeling has a name, but almost nobody talks about it the right way. This is about the loneliness that doesn't look like loneliness from the outside. The kind that lives not in empty rooms, but in full ones. The kind that follows you home from the party. That sits next to you at dinner. That watches you smile and laugh and respond and engage, and never once gets touched. You know what it feels like to be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone, don't you? This isn't about shyness. It's not about social anxiety. It's not about being an introvert who needs quiet time to recharge. This is something different, quieter, more specific. It's the gap between being around people and actually being reached by them, between having contact and having connection, between being in a room and being in a room in a way that matters. Most people have learned to mistake one for the other. Most people spend years filling the contact column and wondering why the loneliness column never empties. And most people carry this gap without ever finding the words for it. Here's what's actually happening. Most social interaction is a performance, not in the dramatic sense, in the very ordinary, everyday sense that almost nobody acknowledges out loud. You learn early, sometimes very early, what version of you gets a good response, what stories make people lean in, what opinions are safe, what jokes land, what parts of yourself make people comfortable, and which parts make them shift in their seat, look away, change the subject. And so, you make a quiet, unconscious calculation. You bring the version that works, every time. Because it does work. People like that person. People laugh with that person. People invite that person back. But here's what nobody tells you about becoming the version that works. Eventually, you forget how to be the version that doesn't. The performance becomes so practiced, so automatic, that even in the moments where you have the space to be real, you reach for the edited version out of habit. Because it's familiar. Because it's safe. Because the unedited version hasn't been out in a while, and you're no longer sure how it would be received. And after years of this, something strange and painful happens. You get very good at being liked, and you feel more alone than ever. Because being liked is not the same as being known. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from being liked but not understood, where people are genuinely warm toward you and you still feel untouched by all of it. Because what they're being warm toward is the version of you that you allowed them to see. The real version, the one carrying doubt, contradiction, weight, the thoughts that run at 3 a.m., the things that don't make you more likable or easier to be around. That one never made it into the room. So their warmth, real as it is, lands somewhere adjacent to you. Close, but not quite on you. Like someone handing you a gift addressed to someone who shares your face. You accept it. You say thank you. You feel the warmth of the gesture. And underneath all of it, untouched, the loneliness remains. Think about the last time someone asked how you were doing. What did you say? And was that actually true? Most people answer from the socially acceptable shelf. Good. Busy. Tired, but fine. Can't complain. These are not lies, exactly. They're just not the whole thing. They're the version of your inner life that has been pre-screened to keep the interaction moving smoothly. That doesn't require anything from either of you. That doesn't open something that might be hard to close. The real answer, if there even is a real answer you've let yourself form, stays somewhere below the surface, unspoken, because the question wasn't really an invitation. And somewhere, quietly, you both know that. And that's the unspoken deal most modern relationships are built on. without anyone consciously agreeing to it. We stay at the surface because the surface is safe, because going deeper requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is a real risk. What if they can't hold it? What if they respond with something hollow? What if what you actually feel sounds too heavy, too strange, too raw for the kind of relationship you've built? So you keep it manageable. Both of you do. And the friendship continues. Warm, functional, genuinely caring in its way, and completely unable to reach the part of you that actually needed to be reached. This is the difference between being familiar and being known. Familiarity takes time. Knowledge takes honesty. You can be deeply familiar with someone and not know them at all. You can know someone's coffee order, their job history, their childhood town, their favorite films, their go-to complaints about work, and still have no real access to what actually moves through them on a hard Tuesday night, to what they're afraid of when the room gets quiet, to the thing they've been carrying that they've never said out loud to anyone because they're not sure the relationship has room for it. Familiarity accumulates naturally. You just have to keep showing up. Knowledge requires something more deliberate. It requires someone deciding to go past the version that's been offered, and it requires the other person allowing that. Most relationships never get there. Not because of cruelty or indifference, because both people are waiting for the other to open the door, and neither one does. The people who are most lonely in this invisible way are often the ones who look from the outside like they have the richest social lives. They're good at people, good at warmth, good at conversation, good at being present in the way a room requires. And so the people around them never think to ask deeper questions. You seem fine. You seem engaged. You seem like someone who has it together. And so the conversation stays on the surface of you because the surface looks so lived in and comfortable that no one thinks to knock. And you are connected, just not in the way that counts. There's a particular kind of pain that comes with sitting next to someone who knows your name, knows your history, knows your habits, has laughed with you 100 times, and having something move through you that you know, with a quiet certainty, you could never actually say to them. Not because they're bad people, not because the friendship isn't real in its own way, but because that's not what the relationship was built for. Because the relationship was built on the comfortable version of you. And introducing the real version now, the uncertain, contradictory, occasionally difficult version, feels like a disruption. Like you'd be changing the terms of something they agreed to without realizing it. So you hold it, and you go home, and you sit with it alone. And the loneliness isn't about emptiness. It's about proximity to people who can't reach you, and the specific grief of knowing that the distance isn't cruelty. It's just the shape of what you allowed the relationship to become. Think about your phone right now. How many contacts are in it? And how many of those numbers feel right for what you're actually feeling at your lowest? Not the polished low. Not the version you'd describe at brunch. The real thing. The specific, quiet, strange, difficult thing you've been holding somewhere beneath everything else. For most people, that list gets very short, very fast. Not because they're friendless, not because nobody cares, but because depth of connection is not the same as volume of connection. You can have 100 people who think warmly of you, and still have nobody who actually knows how to hold what you're holding. And that gap, between how many people are in your life and how many people know your actual life, is where this particular loneliness lives. Why is depth so difficult to build? Because genuine connection requires something the performance version of yourself can never offer. It requires letting someone see something that hasn't been edited yet. Something uncertain. Something that might not make you seem put together. Something that might make them uncomfortable, or confused, or pull back slightly. And most people don't do that. Not because they're dishonest, because they've learned in small, quiet ways over many years that it isn't worth the risk. Because the one time they tried, it didn't land the way they hoped. Because the room they grew up in gave clear signals that certain things should stay inside. Because being liked feels safer than being known, even though being known is the only thing that has ever actually reached the loneliness. And so it deepens, slowly, invisibly, behind everything else. You become someone who can be in every room and fully present in none of them. Someone who can talk to anyone and feel understood by almost no one. Someone who performs connection so well that no one suspects the performance. Someone whose phone is full and still can't think of a single number to call at 2 a.m. with the true version of the thing. Not because those people don't care, but because you never showed them what caring for you would actually require. And because showing them now, after years of the comfortable version, feels more vulnerable than starting over from scratch. That is not a character flaw. It is not a personal failure. It is what happens when contact consistently replaces connection. When the approved version of you keeps getting the relationship, but the real version of you keeps paying the price for it. Year after year, room after room, conversation after conversation that almost went somewhere real and didn't. The loneliness that lives in the presence of people is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It accumulates quietly in all the conversations that skimmed the surface. In every room where you performed the right version. In every moment you almost said the real thing and then didn't. In all the ways you were seen without ever truly being known. And the only thing that can reach it, the only thing that has ever reached it, is someone encountering the version of you that didn't get edited first. You cannot be found by people who have only ever met your performance.